And so yeah, I when I work in Visual Code Studio, I need all time to write the command for running my code. I have a question. How can how can I stop the Visual Code when I press Ctrl plus S on my keyboard? So and after saving, it should be like a compile new code and running. So do you know how to do it?
Go ahead, Reetam.
So maybe I can jump in. If you are using VS Code, and let's say you made some modification, you can save it. I believe there is a few options to run your code. There are command line or
Mm-hmm.
terminal that you can pull up and run the file directly with like Python space file name, as simple as that. And another way you can run, there is an option called run Python. Let me share my screen. Maybe that would.
Depending on what extensions you have too, because yeah, I see you had the little play button up in the corner,
Mhm.
and that'll give you the hotkey. I think if you highlight over that with the tooltip to be shift and enter, I think.
So you see this corner, there is a
Yeah, I tried
play
to do the
button.
same, but
Okay. So if you run the Python file from here, whatever file is open, that's gonna run for you.
yeah.
And
Okay,
in
thank you.
case, yeah, if you, I think there is another thing to check is, how can I minimize? Sorry. Okay, so another thing to check is like if you have the Python setup in your VS Code, like let's say I have a virtual environment created here, it's gonna point to this virtual environment. So first time when you try to run, it may ask for like it may look for the Python version that you have installed, or if you have not, maybe you need to configure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, try this out. If it doesn't work, maybe we can check one.
And I'll also share my screen because I have another approach. Very similar to what Reetam's talking about right here. So do just the Visual Studio Code so you see what's going on. So say you want to just run this right in here. Usually Shift and Enter will run your Python in your terminal and launch it so that you can go in here and then start doing calling your functions, you know, and go from there. You can do, you know, and then you can start following your trace stacks and all of that so that you can start doing that. But there's also the native rep over here where you can execute. Calc, if I could spell today, later. Then we're going to do one. No, one times anything is one. So let's do 12 times 3. And we give it the string multiply. And it'll work kind of like a Jupyter notebook where you can come in and you start putting everything in. Because once you take all of your definition in here, I believe you fill it in here. And then you should be able to run it just like a notebook. Yes. All right. So the green check mark means it's running, and then you can do the calculator. 12, 4, dream multiply. Still can't spell today. 1, 2, 5. Yeah. All right. There you go. And then you'll get your right down in here. So it just kind of depends on your approach
Mhm.
and which extensions you're using. All right. Well, Rita, it looks like we've got a few eager people joining us. So you want to, we can do some introductions real quick, and then I'll let you take out over. My name is Eric Hunter Petros. I'm one of the group mentors here for Code the Dream. Welcome, everybody. We are excited to show you guys some of the different ways to get into Python. I am a remote instructor for The Last Mile and a group mentor instructor here for Code the Dream. And I'm also a fellow alumni, and I am currently wrapping up at Columbia Business School. And I will pass it over to my partner, Reetam.
Thanks, Santa. So, myself, Reetam, I have been working in IT tech industries for over 18 years now. And I'm also joined as a mentor here to help with Python essentials and Python programming. And that's pretty much about me.
Do you want us to do introductions as well, or just for the instructors?
Sure, if you're comfortable introducing yourself, feel free to.
Okay, my name is Yasa. I did just like a regular software development boot camp specifically for full stack. I really wanted to get more proficient in Python, so of course that's why I joined Code the Dream. And yeah, I am just here to see what's going on.
Awesome. Welcome.
Awesome.
Anybody else? All right, Rita, floor is yours. I'm going to take attendance and get us started on the back end here.
Yeah. So before I start, I just wanted to understand, like, if anybody already attended any session with these course of lessons that we're going to cover, or this is the first time you're attending.
First lesson.
First lesson. Okay. Okay. Good. Cool. All right. Let me share my screen, then I can probably try to cover up a little bit from the beginning. So we are trying to focus on the basic steps, the introduction, and hope you can see my screen. So the topics are already available in Python Essential Lesson GitHub page. And I believe all of you might have already set up the Python environment in your somewhere in your IDE, VS Code, or maybe you're running from command line, whatever way is preferable for you. And if not, if you're still struggling, let me know, or Hunter know. We can take it up maybe separately. But my intention is to just go over the lessons today. And again, if you have any trouble with the Python setup, just let us know. We can take it. Okay.
Really quickly, I think I was able to set it up, but could you just tell me what the purpose of the virtual environment is? I was a little bit confused about like why we had to do it that way.
Yeah, sure. So I can probably, Hunter, feel free to add. I can probably start. So let's say you have your Python installed in your local system, right? And then you probably need a bunch of libraries, or there could be additional external libraries that want to use your code. And the way it works, like if you have a default version that works fine with the basic Python, the like default libraries that is available in Python, and then you need to do pip install. So for each uh, libraries, let's say, for example, I wanted to use pandas, right? So once I add pandas, it's gonna look for the libraries. If I do not have it installed, we usually go to the terminal and do pip install, right? So this installation goes to the default location. If you have your personal computer set up with pandas, the Panda has a default directory where all the files get installed. So this will go there. But if you wanted to maintain a separate environment just for your own code, your own project, this environment comes into picture. You can create a virtual environment where you can maintain your custom libraries or your specific libraries that you're going to use your code. It may not be available to the default location, default installer version in the Python.
Okay,
Okay, so
so
that's where
the virtual environment makes sense. Does that just help us save space, or does it make it more efficient?
It's a
so
little
it's
bit of
it's
both.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. So one of the analogies I like to use, because the thing about Python is you're going to be doing a lot of imports and a lot of pip installs. So you think of it as like digital Legos. So the different libraries and everything that you're going to import are all out there waiting for you to pip install, whether you need to add matplotlib or Pygame, say you're making an asteroids game, or you're doing something as simple as just pip installing Jupyter notebooks so that you can add that into your environment. So the virtual environment is on your local machine, everything that you've installed for this session that you're going to need to run. So there's so many libraries out there that you can't be expected to contain all of those on your local machine. You just bring in what you need for, each specific task that you're doing.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, thank you. Because the directions didn't explain what we were doing, so I was like, did I do it right? Okay,
Right.
that makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. So any other questions on the setup? Does everybody like have already set up the VS Code or any other environment that they're working on already? Okay. So before I jump in, maybe I just wanted to a little bit highlight on the plugins. If you VS Code, there are few plugins that really helps to speed up the process. Like the Python is kind of you need to recognize the Python files and running the program from your VS Code. So you may need this one. And I like another one is the Jupyter Notebook. So if you type in Jupyter, then oops, it's already there. So if you type in Jupyter, this is another Microsoft plugin which can allow you to set up the program separately. So for example, I have the Jupyter installed, and there are a few things you can do. Like, for example, you can run a block of code. So for example, I have something running here, and then maybe I need to work on another assignment, another piece of code. You can, keep adding up. And then the advantage is like you can run both the blocks separately. So for example, I have one block of code where you have maybe you're working on an assignment or some function and all you wanted to run separately. You don't want to run the entire Python program. Then there are a few options on top, and this will come up once you install the Jupyter extension. Like you can run the cell, so it's gonna run only this part of it, or you can also run the debug. Okay, debug is gonna give you more option. Maybe we can come into these details, but this is basically I just wanted to highlight. This will help you to keep on working on multiple assignment in a one file, and you can test the individual part, whatever you're working on. And there is another option to let you know these are like if you change the file extension to IPYNB, this will give you kind of a like notebook feel where you will get the option to some buttons you can get to create similar environment. Like you see, there is a generate, code, markdown options available now. If I press on, let's say, wanted to write a code, this will give you another block of area where you can separately run and test your code. And then you can move along with another block of code like that. Right. So this will kind of a like notebook kind of a background that you're gonna get.
It is important to note, like you guys aren't going to really need to know all the features of this right now, but when you get a little bit farther down, when you are adding imports and stuff to your Jupyter notebook, each of these blocks are dependent upon you running one before the other. So if you have an import for your first one, like import OS, imports this, and we'll cover import logging. We'll cover a lot of these and further down the line in the classes. So now you see his logging functions in the next cell are working because he's imported logging into the first one and run it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that yeah, that does make sense. Like the sequential nature of like having to call things in a certain order. I had a question about the extension YPNB, like the Python notebook,
Mhm.
and I wanted to know when you add additional notes that are like non-code notes, are they also going to be pushed up to the repo, or like what happens with that? Or does it stay on your local device, or does like the notes and the code get
So generally
I hope
speaking,
that's not a bad question.
generally speaking, everything you have in your local repository, if you go to commit it, unless you're using a git ignore file, which I see Reetam has one right there, it will push up everything that you have to your repository. But your git ignore is where you can start adding, like say you have a .env file where you have your API key or passwords, and you don't want to push that up to GitHub where it would be seen by everyone. So that's where you would start editing what gets ignored by the git push.
Okay, I think I guess my confusion, and I can just like watch a video about this later, but I guess I don't really understand the use of the notebook feature in Note, like the notepad feature. Maybe it's because I'm coming from JavaScript, but I'm like, either you write the code or then you run it.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I feel
Because
like
Yeah,
Jupyter Notebook does what you need it to do outside of that. So that's why I'm a little confused.
so Python's a primarily backend language where JavaScript is natively ran in a web browser. So that's why when you're doing your console logs and everything, it's already built in with its interpreter in the web page. And so what you're doing is being related right there in the console because you're literally in a console like this. But since Python is more of a backend universal language, you gotta take a couple extra steps to build like the GUI or the console to say like what you're gonna be looking at out of.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
right. All right. So yeah, moving along. So first thing, we have some Python basics. Okay, one thing I just wanted to clarify, if you have any question, don't hesitate to interrupt and ask it. The purpose of this, introduction, I wanted to make it interactive so that we can answer all of your doubts and questions. All right, so if I scroll down, there are few basic things you can read through, but I just wanted to maybe highlight few. So if you have noticed, for Python, there is no kind of like data type we are specifically assigning, like JavaScript or any other language. We usually either mention the data type at the beginning, or this is something little different in Python. Like we can just assign a variable with string or float or integer, and then it will internally can understand, or it can derive the data type based on what value is getting assigned. So that's quite kind of different. I think in JavaScript we have var, so it's kind of maybe similar to that. Okay, and so yeah, these examples are kind of giving you the different data types that we have. Like if it is a true or false, it's gonna set it to Boolean, and then similarly the floating point number or double, sometimes we call it, and then string, and then this is simple integer. Okay. So one quick thing that we can always check, if we have, let's say, lengthy code and you might have getting some error somewhere, there is an easy way to check the type of the variable by the type function, and you can pass on the variable name that will give you what kind of what type of variable we are dealing with. All right. So yeah, any question on the data types? Do you want me to maybe add anything, share any specific area? Are you are good with the data type, like how it's getting assigned? It's mostly pretty much straightforward, but let me know if you have any question.
Does everybody understand the difference between a float and an integer?
I do.
Go ahead.
The difference between a float and an integer is like an integer is just a single number, but a float includes like a decimal point. So that could be like 0.0. It's still a float, even though like what it will equivalent to is just the number to the left of the decimal point.
That's good. So let me ask something. So for example, we have something like this, 7 point, let's say 00. Is it gonna take this variable as floating point or integer? What do you think?
I would say a floating point.
Okay, that's cool. So let's try this out. As I said, we have type function. We can always check, right? So since I have given a decimal, this will take it as a float, right? And if I remove these zeros or the dot, this is gonna be integer, right?
I did have one question about the data conversion. I noticed it in the example. I didn't actually test it out, but if you add an integer and a float without explicitly converting the float, I mean the integer to a float, the result will be an integer. Is that correct?
That we can try this out. So what are you talking about? Let's say first number is integer, and then you're saying maybe second number is a float.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if I do a sum, the question is whether the sum would be float or integer. Sorry. One sec. Let me just put it in the next line maybe. So I wanted to check data type of sum result, for example.
Yeah.
Right. So since we have one floating point number, when it's doing the summation, it's considering there could be a decimal number, right? So instead of, let's say, 3.00, we can, put something on real decimal number. In that, let me clear it out. So let's say if there is a decimal place mentioned there. So when we are doing the summation, it's gonna take it as a float.
Oh, I
Makes
see.
sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. But good question, thanks.
No, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, let me go forward with the data conversion. We have pretty much like so if you look at these conversion, we can convert this integer. I mean, it's not an integer. It's basically it's storing as a string since we have mentioned as a double quotes. So it will try to see what is this a number or what is the string inside, and if it is a valid integer, we can use this int function to convert, right? And similarly, we have a float function str basically try to convert into string, and then the boolean will try to convert into a boolean. If it is positive +5, for example, it's going to be true. If it is -5, it's going to be false. So these are pretty much like inbuilt function that we can utilize, and for explicit conversion, if we really wanted to explicitly convert something into a different data type. Okay. Any question on the conversion? So if you look at this example, right, we have age, which is integer, but since we are trying to create a message which is a string, we used plus sign, which is like concatenating other string, like one string with another. It requires to convert into a string because you are doing a string operation where you're trying to concat multiple string together in a string variable. Makes sense? So that's where these explicit conversions comes into play.
Does everybody understand what concatenation is?
I would say yes, for the most part, I do.
Okay. And then what is the difference between then explicit and implicit, right? When we took that example we just discussed, like it's trying to sum up two number with one integer, another float. It's basically implicitly converting the result into float because we have a floating point number in our calculation, right? So we are not explicitly calling any inbuilt function. It's basically trying to do it implicitly. It's like getting converted automatically. And when we specify these functions, the conversion functions, it will try to explicitly store the result as a integer. So for example, in this example, it won't consider this dot 8. This is a floating point number 2.8, but it's not going to consider the dot 8 because we are explicitly saying let's consider the integer part of it. So it's not a float. So it will ignore the decimal part. Right? So that's very important, like how it is reacting in these calculations implicit way, and when we intended to convert any data type to our preference, right? That's the major difference between implicit and explicit. Okay. Then moving along, operators, these are pretty much straightforward, but I just wanted to maybe highlight between these stuff. So these are all straightforward mathematical calculation. We have all these operators that we can use with integers and you know, floating numbers. But one thing to keep in mind, since we talked about the concatenation just before a few minutes, this concatenation is kind of similar behaving as addition, but the way it's operate on integer or float may not be the same as the way it's operating on the string. It's trying to concat multiple strings and creating a entire string, whereas it's trying to um, operate on the integer. It's coming up with a sum of one integer number.
In general, with Python, is it recommended, like for string specifically, is it recommended that you concatenate, or is like a F string better? Or is that different? Those are two different things. Because the F
Uh,
string's only inside of print. Is that right?
yeah. So
Okay.
F
Okay.
string is a format string where we wanted to like format the entire string with, maybe you can do many things with F string. We have that example, I think, down somewhere. But when we're talking about concatenation, it's just like trying to add up multiple string into one.
So you guys don't like, not you guys. Python doesn't have a version of like a temperate literal outside of the F string. You only have concatenation.
That's correct. The F
Okay.
string is basically the same as a template literal, so it will evaluate out the entire print statement in the F string, but it's not completely like the same rules as a template literal with your backticks like JavaScript.
Okay. As you guys can tell, most of my questions are probably going to just be coming from having done JavaScript. So yeah.
Yeah. When I first switched over, I spent a lot of time translating my JavaScript into Python, and now going back to my new class teaching Mern, I spend a lot of time translating my Python into JavaScript. So it's good to have them both.
All right. So moving along, there are comparison operator. This is like mostly used for for the if else conditions, wherever you have, if you wanted to compare two values, whether it's a integer, float, or any data type, and then there is all these options like greater than, less than. Just play around. You should able to figure out how it's behave. And then we also have the logical operator, and or not. So if something value is like not true, false, and multiple things. If you wanted to join, we can come to the example later, but these are the operators that we're going to use. Okay. This is pretty straightforward. Okay, there are some questions. Do you want me to go over, Hunter, or that's fine? We can skip. Maybe let's see.
Yeah, let's just keep on going.
Yeah. Okay. So this is block structure. All right. So if you look at Python, it doesn't have any like semicolon or not much curly braces and all the way we probably if you're familiar with JavaScript or other languages, there are a lot of like blocks which use curly braces, maybe semicolon at the end, and so many other things. But Python is kind of like avoiding all these, but it is very much dependent on the indentation. So if you take this example, right, these function definition, it will only consider this below block of line if the indentation is correctly defined. If you pull something at the okay, let me just try to copy this and maybe that'll be easier. So for example, if you have something like this won't be considered part of function. So this line will be out of your function, right? So that's where the indentation comes very like it's very critical for a Python language. Every block of code will follow with one kind of like tab, you can say. So one tab inside, and then again for the if condition, you might have seen the print statement is again indented to write with one tab. So if you let's say put it like this, it's gonna throw error because it won't able to understand where the print is like part of. So if condition, it's looking for another statement here. Let's say if I add something like this, that's gonna work. So that indentation is really critical for Python programming. So whenever if you come across any situation where you are not sure how the indentation should be, maybe you need to go over the code from top to bottom to figure out if a proper tab and indentation is followed. And any doubt on this indentation? I know, I mean, if somebody is like trying to use Python for first time, maybe this will be little annoying for few people. All right. So yeah, moving along the control flow, we have something called if, which is trying to uh, compare between like one variable and value, and these operators we already have seen. There are multiple operators equal to, greater than, equal to, all these stuffs. And then we can keep adding all the conditions like else if, and we can move along like, for example, I wanted to add another else here. So the syntax goes like ELIF, and then you can keep adding multiple else if, and then finally, if no conditions match, it will go to the else part. So this is the way it works, right? You can keep on adding else if like this, right?
Just remember that your if statement is one piece of the bread and your else statement is the other piece of the bread. You can put as much as you want. Like, does anybody remember the old Dagwoods? I aged myself with this, but he used to buy the gigantic sandwiches. So you can have as many else ifs in there as you need to, but you always close it with the else.
Are there any like switch cases in Python?
It does.
Yeah, there is. There's switches, but we won't get to that quite yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, unless he wants to cover it. Go ahead. Cool.
You can still show me.
Yeah, go ahead, show it. She's curious.
Okay. Yeah, we have like switch case. It's kind of like similar as similar as other languages. Like, you can have the switch conditions here, and then oops, and then you can. Sorry, my mouse is not there. Okay. Anyway, maybe we could get into that. So this is kind of similar, right? We can have the switch, and then for each case you can define like your conditions and then follow along. It's kind of similar as like JavaScript if you're coming from JavaScript area.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You can look at an example. I think we have it here somewhere. No? Okay. And then this if else, right? The way Hunter was saying, like this is the first word and everything else goes to else. And then we can also add nested condition. It's pretty much kind of similar way as else if. So in only the difference is if condition is not true, it will keep on checking all the else if, and then finally it will go to else. But in nested cases, let's say if it's not true, it's gonna go to the else, and then again we have similar structure as your first condition. So it depends on what kind of what kind of problem you're trying to solve, but these are the options we can go with. Okay. All right. Now here comes the loop. So the loop, we have different type of loops, like while loop and then for loop, right? And if you look at this example, like for loop is kind of loop through or iterate through the entire list. So we have a list here with some string values, and then it's kind of like looping through each values. And while it's iterate, it will look into the each values inside your list. But one thing to remember in the loop or in the list, when we talk about the index, like the position of your value, it starts with 0. Okay, so the first value would be 0th index, and then followed by 1, 2, 3. Right. So this loop iteration is will give you basically the entire flow, entire data, but it will iterate through each values at a time. Right. So that's kind of the purpose of the iterating through a list of items, a list of numbers, and that's the purpose of for loop, or in general loop, right? And then this example, it says like range 3. It's like it's setting up the the maximum range, and this I is working as a kind of counter where it will iterate till 3, right? So it starts from 0 and then 1, 2. Okay. And the difference between for and while is more of a like when you wanted to set a stop point. Let's say you wanted to loop through 3 times, sorry, less than 3, like 2 times, and you wanted to run the counter, you can update the counter and decide how many loops you want to go. So in for loop, you already have a list. This will loop through until the list is over. But in while loop, it's in your control. Let's say you wanted to print out, X number of times while the condition is true, right? So that's where the difference between for and while. The while depends on a condition, checks for the loop will go run through as long as the condition remains true, right? And then we also have a option called break. If you wanted to come out of the loop in a particular conditions, we can use the break statement or break keyword, you can say. Right? Similarly, we have a continue keyword as well. It will keep on continuing the loop even if the condition is true. Okay, so
For the
let's
continue,
answer. Mhm.
so after the program reads that continue, it literally just goes back up to the top of for num in range 5, and it doesn't even continue anything that's below that, I guess, scope. This like it doesn't continue anything in that scope. It just starts again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Can anyone answer this just to test like if things are understandable so far? So it says age equal to 16, and we have this piece of code. What do you think would fall in?
You are a teenager.
Okay, because greater than equal to 13. So first condition is probably would skip
Yeah.
because it's not greater than 18 or equal to. Right, cool. Okay. Moving along. So the function, it's pretty much straightforward, right? We were trying some function, writing some function here. Okay, let me just write something. So we start with def, that's the function name. Sorry, that's the starting of defining a definition, and then it comes like function name, and then goes like this. Like once you define the function, we required a colon, and then everything indented towards inside the function will be indented with a tab. And then whatever you write inside, that will be part of your function, right? And the way we call, it's simply calling the function name, right? There is no semicolon, nothing is required as such, right? And then we can pass arguments. So within this bracket, you can keep on adding all the arguments, whatever we need. And then this function call, you can pass along, let's say, all these arguments that you intended to pass. So these values will be passing into your function, right? And then let's talk about the return. So once you have, let's say, I wanted to sum up this 3 number, right? And then there is something called return. So what it's going to do, it will return this value, whatever function is like have done inside your calculations, it's going to return from this function. Now, how are we going to capture it? We can capture it like this, right? Return of, let's say, function, just for simplicity, I'm just putting the guideline. So what is going to happen, like this is the return statement, and then equals function name, we have the parameters, and then finally this return will give you the final end operation of your function, which will be stored here. Okay. So return is okay.
That's going to definitely bring up some questions.
Yeah.
Well, as we're getting close to time here, is there anybody that has any questions? Because I know Reetam just covered a lot. Everybody got everything the first time? Because I know I didn't.
I'm gonna just marinate off of what he just did. It's familiar, but it's like I don't know. I don't know if I literally have a question about it. It's just more so something to remember, if that makes sense.
Yeah, what you're doing is you're converting the syntax for yourself because
Yeah.
you're going to understand a lot of the features and the way that it works, but the syntax and the indentations are going to throw you off a little bit. It's not going to look quite right to you.
Yeah. I will say this is about where I haven't read this far, so all this stuff would be new if he did go over it, so I wouldn't know anything.
Well, how do you feel,
Okay.
Ethan? You want to go over some more?
I don't know. It all depends on like maybe I should pause and ask like, have anyone gone this far, or maybe it's like getting difficult to digest, or what do you feel? I don't know who are there in the call. Maybe I can
Do a
pull
quick
it up.
poll in the chat. On a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable do you feel with what we've covered so far? Got an 8,
Yeah.
5. Mhm. So, all right, Manny's at a 9. Do you want to take a second, Natalia, and uh, come off mute and let us know what you're struggling with?
Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought it's from 1 to 5.
Oh, okay. All right. All
Never
right.
mind, yeah. Yeah, until now it's fine, but later on I didn't read too.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe I can just touch upon quickly on the debugging part, because I know most of you, when we'll start with running all these codes and testing it out, you probably would require um, some way to test it properly, or the way to debug the code if something is going wrong and all. So I just wanted to highlight, like, there is some option called this tab. So you see there is a tab called Run and Debug. So if you're using VS Code, once you, let's say, debug the code, either you can debug, since I'm running as a notebook, there is a small debug cell button option is there. Otherwise, if it is a simple Python code, you probably have an option to run it from here, or maybe you can get an option from the top. I'm using Mac, but Windows probably will have some similar thing. So from run, you can say start debugging, right? Once you have the debugging options on, everything should appear like the, let me run it. Once you run it here, it's going on. Sorry. So I think I'm just wanted to run debugger on the file. So it's gonna show you in the terminal, and there are a few options. Like for example, if you hover over this right left hand side, it's something called add breakpoints. So what it's gonna do, let's say I wanted to check the function, how it's behaving, how it's calculating each number and all. So once you start the debugging, it's gonna stop here. It's not gonna move. Now look at the right hand corner. You can probably find somewhere. You would have these buttons. Okay. There is a run, continue, and there is something called step over, step into, step out, and restart. Restart's gonna restart the entire execution of the file. And there is at the end you will find stop option. Stop means just stop wherever you are. Let's look at the step over for now. If you step over, it's not gonna get into the code inside the function, right? It's directly jumped into this line, right? And then finally it's gonna print and come out. But if you see another option called step into, what it's gonna, oops. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, so what I was saying. So yeah, so if you get into step into, it's gonna get inside, and then one other option I just wanted to highlight. Let's say you wanted to check all these variable. If something is wrong or somewhere you will doubt, like if anything is going wrong, you can always add these things into your watch list. So the purpose of this watch is mostly to watch all these values, or watch look for these variables and all. And this is how you can add your components here and follow along with the code, and then this will give you easier option to debug. As I feel like I just wanted to add if you really want to try it out. Okay, and definitely the easier option is to put a lot of printfs here and there. If something is going wrong, let's say, I don't know if all these values are correctly passing or not, you can always put all these printfs anywhere you want, right? Let's say arguments you wanted to check and that.
When it comes to like watching the arguments, let's say like you're doing reassignment inside of like a function, is that where it's good for? So it'll start at like null or nothing or whatever. And then when it's moving through the code, I guess you can stop it at the breakpoints and you can see what the value is for each breakpoint. Is that kind of how you would use it?
Yeah. So let's say you have something called sum. You wanted to set up as a 0 initially, and then it's gonna sum it up all the values. So this is where it comes handy to check if initially things are 0, and then whether it's calculating the entire things correctly. It's kind of step by step, right? So that's gonna help. I just thought of touching up. Okay. I'll stop sharing, and maybe I can feel free to ask if you have any questions. A little over time, I think. We are.
I do have to leave in a second, but I'm gonna ask one more question about the virtual environment. So you're talking about it like helping it be more efficient and then also saving storage on your like local device. This is probably a very naive question. Where is it actually stored? So like for example, if you're using like PNPM, like that's when you're globally adding a file so you don't have to like keep having it individually in every single like folder. But where in the virtual like where are these PIP installations being saved in the virtual environment? Like, do you have to be connected to internet? I just haven't played around with it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think I can touch upon and feel free to add, Hunter. So if you look into this folder structure where you have the files, right? Or when you will create the virtual and when you have to specify a location, a folder location. For me, it's pointing at develop under root. I have created another folder, subfolder called Code the Dreams and then Python folder. So this is where it's going to create, and whatever pip install is going to do, it will come part of your library. So if you look at this list of libraries, these are all the libraries I have right now. And then let's say I wanted to install pandas, for example, it's going to get in here, get added as part of your side packages.
A good way to think of it is kind of like your cookies when you're going on the web. So when you go from web to web page, a lot of pages have similar or even the same cookies. So your web browser will store some of those cookies to enable faster loading so that you don't have to re-download that package every time you visit a different web page. So as you add your pip installs, you're adding, we could, for better word, just call it cookies to your local machine so that you have that information already available to you. It slows down some of your loading times and everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Is this something specific to Python, or is it just for anything? I just haven't ever used, like, I've heard of a virtual machine, but I've never used the virtual environment for anything. And then also I do want to point out Elena has a question in the chat.
Looks like Elena is going into tuples. You want to explain that one, read them?
Yeah, you can take it up. That's fine.
So
Just
I'll
having
do
hard
this
time
one.
to pull up the chat window. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'll handle the chat if you want to explain Yasa's question.
I will say I actually have to drop so we can put a pin in this question, okay?
Okay.
But have a great night. Enjoy your Friday. Don't party too hardy. Bye, y'all.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So the reason, Elena, that you're having a little bit of trouble is you're using multiple keyword arguments in there. Let me go ahead and uh, explain this to Reetam so he can see. She says, why I can't do names equals curly braces, quotation, string Anna, colon, 89, comma, and then she repeats it with another tuple for Andrew, and then another tuple Angela, and then she tries to call the function greet names.
Okay, so in the greet names, we have okay, I don't know why I'm not able to pull up the chat somewhere, but
Okay, let me
something got closed out somewhere.
all right.
I'm sorry about that. Let me.
I'll just share my screen so you can see what she's talking about, and then we can walk through it with her together.
Mhm.
Let's see. So in hers, she has names. She assigns Anna,
Mhm.
89, Andrew,
Okay.
78. All right.
Mhm.
Take it away. Because when you go to do and call greet names, you're going to see that that doesn't work. But when you do the wildcard with the quargs, with the greet names, it will work. And she's wondering if we could explain why.
Okay. So the wildcard is there are two type of arguments we use, right? Most commonly, one is the key arguments, like key and value pairs, and then we have the you know positional argument, we call it, like you have like multiple arguments without the key. So in your case, you are using the key value pair, right? So in the key value pair, the way it works, it's called KW args, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like, a way we can dynamically provide the name and parameters to collect the arguments. And the double star in here is basically works. It's basically like defined for the key value. So if you use single star, for example, it's gonna allow only, number of arguments without the key. When it comes to key value pair, it is the way we need to, define a hash type of dictionary. I'm not sure if this sounds familiar, the hash table dictionary stuff and all. So that's the way Python interpret the key value with the double star. That makes sense.
What's that, Elena? Does that help?
Keyword
Oh,
argument versus positional argument.
so we already decided we defined dictionary, right? So names, it's a dictionary with key values. So
It's called
and I
hash.
thought I thought we can just pass this variable, this dictionary, and I don't understand why do we need to add this two asterisks before variable. So Python does not understand that we pass the dictionary without these two asterisks.
Yeah, so when you have like variable or dynamic parameters in your function, that's where these arguments and these key arguments comes into picture, right? It is not fixed. So for example, in normal function, you have a fixed variable where you just need one argument or two argument that you already know. That's not dynamic. That's a one case. And then the other case could be dynamic. So in dynamic situation, there could be two scenarios, or we can highlight two scenarios here. One is the the positional argument, and another is the key value pairs, the way you are passing here, right? It's a key value pair. So now when it is key value pair, the way Python interprets, it's required double start. It's kind of like, if you're familiar with C++, we have something we used to call it pointers. Not sure whether you're familiar with. So in it's the star acts like a pointer. It's pointing to a starting position of your entire dynamic parameter size. So that's where the way hash table works, or the hash key value pair, is different than positional argument, like single argument.
So it's like double pointer.
Yeah, double pointer.
And if
Okay.
you want to pass list, we need to list variable, we need to add one asterisk.
So list is a separate data type,
If
right?
we have create x, and then we have variable list, again names, or I don't know, just numbers.
Okay, so if I, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to say,
So we need to create asterisk numbers.
yeah. So if you wanted to iterate through like this list of fruits, right? and you wanted to know the position of, say, the second fruit, it would be position 1, right? Instead of having to, because when you're in here, oops, like you see the difference. So this one knows that you have a string: apple, banana, cherry, date. But then, so if we take this over here and we add that, and then say, what do we want to do? We want to print type fruit, right? So that we can identify what this is. You can see that it's a list, whereas in this one, because of the curly braces, we're going to see type. Type names. So you're going to fundamentally iterate through the two differently. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
You just need time to consume it, but yes.
Of
That's
course.
still
Yeah.
only unclear part of lesson 1 for me. So I still don't feel confident yet.
Okay. And repetition is going to be one of the ways to pick this up the best way. Just I would say just get in there, just keep coding, keep coming back to office hours, and picking brains with your mentors.
Okay.
All right. All right. So if that's for everybody, I'm going to give you guys your weekend back. I want to thank you all for listening to me and Reetam drone on and on. So thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Have a good
Yeah.
weekend.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.